No, that bit's cool.
That bit's cool.
That bit's cool.
You know what's cooler?
What?
This.
Oh. After a spirited drive the other week, I noticed that it was getting a bit warm under the bonnet. Oil pressure was a touch low, and the air-fuel mixture wasn't quite right anymore. But the radiator temperature was fine, the fan was cutting in air. So I decided to invest in an oil cooler. Hopefully this will also future-proof the engine for some upcoming mods. So what's in the box, Matthew?
We've got a small radiator, some pipe clamps, nuts and bolts, some hoses, and a sandwich plate. But how come it's not big enough to put my sandwich on though?
So the question is, where am I going to mount the radiator? Here? Bosso style? Under the front like an intercooler, blocking the radiator? Out in the nose like an MGB? On sound advice, I'm actually going to mount it behind the radiator. This side. The theory is that the operating temperature of the oil, around 120 degrees centigrade, is higher than that of the water, at about 80 to 90 degrees centigrade. Therefore, if we put the oil cooler in front of the water, it becomes more of a heater. If we move it behind the cooling radiator, the air will be warmed up, passing through the radiator, but still have cooling potential for the oil cooler. First things first, we need to remove the radiator. I'm doing okay.
Yeah, let me know when to stop.
And there's the cross member. I had a rummage around the scrap pile at work, found some old aluminium that was being thrown away, and managed to knock up a couple of brackets. Hopefully these should hold the oil cooler nice and steady.
Can't seem to get the nut on any further.
The reason you're having trouble, Matthew, is because they're nylon nuts. They've got a little blue section of nylon inside them, which stops them coming undone. Shove them out.
What's that? Spotted in my leg or something. Oh.
don't drop the oil pressure switch. Okay, carefully unbolt the oil pump cover.
Hate spam.
No, it's not like a sump pump. So the cover plate, or sandwich plate, although it's not a sandwich plate, is a direct replacement for the oil pump cover that normally goes on here. So the new cover plate is on. It was quite hard to film trying to do it by myself, as Matthew's had to go off and do something else for a minute. So the new cover plate's on, the radiator's mounted. Let's see if we can connect some hoses. So we've got the lines fitted. It doesn't look too bad, but unfortunately the oil pressure switch for the gauge won't fit without some sort of extension on it. So I'm going to have to order that and pick up the video when that arrives. However, the other thing we need to do is install this oil thermostat. This means that the engine oil will only get cooled when it's hot, as opposed to all the time. But first, I think we're going to need to bleed the radiator and make sure it's full of oil. And to bleed the oil system, I'm going to need to have the oil pressure switch fitted, because otherwise there's a leak. So when the parts arrive, we'll pick up the video and finish the job.
Dad, post here.
There's not very interesting things to be said about changing an engine oil and filter. After all, we've done it before. But let's get it on. Tea break time again, Matthew. The grandma's cake today.
Yep. Except it's more like juice time.
Okay. So with the oil filter now changed, we can reconnect the oil pressure gauge and we need to fill it up with oil. So we've got fresh engine oil in there, fresh coolant. Now we need to generate some oil pressure before we start the engine. So I'm going to disconnect the coil, get Matthew to crank the engine over, keep an eye on the gauges, the oil pressure lights until we know it's full of oil pressure. Okay Matthew, when you're ready, crank the engine over.
On it. Right.
Let the thing come back a bit. Okay, time for the big moment. I've reconnected the coil and let's see if she starts.
Hey, that's a win-win.
Oil pressure gauge isn't happy. We'll have to look into that, but seems okay. So the road test was a success, but when I got back, this happened. So as you can see, I've bought another Triumph Sprint 16 valve engine. Part of some future plans I've got. It's basically offered at a price on eBay I just couldn't turn down. It was so cheap it was ridiculous. So I've got a complete engine here to use for mocking up, and ultimately I'm going to build this one up into a really good solid oil tight engine with which we can make a bit more power, have a bit of fun with, whilst not worrying too much about the engine that's in the car. So if I blow that one up, well, it's not the end of the world, I've got a good spare. So watch this space for future bits with this one. So that's it for part one. In part two, we investigate the oil pressure issues further, we find something a little bit scary, and we get to go to a car meet. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. You might consider hitting like or subscribe and clicking the bell. But whatever, thanks very much for watching the video. I'll see you again in part two.